So let's get started. So Yama Malia, Nganga Duni Gaba Gubiai, Ngaya Bronwyn Cochrane, Gunima Ngay, Gunima Gamilroy Nu. So what I just said there was, hello friends, good afternoon and welcome. My name is Bronwyn Cochrane, but please call me Bonnie. I belong to my motherland, the Gamilroy motherland. And before we begin our journey in the realms of knowledge and innovation today, it's important to acknowledge the land on which we are sitting. I sit on the sacred grounds of the Gumbaynggirr people on saltwater country, and it's with deep respect that we honour the ancestors and elders who have cared for country. And also, I'd like to acknowledge the ancestors and elders of the country you are joining us from today. And I'd also like to extend that acknowledgement to any First Nations people joining us today. Our wisdom, stories and connections to the land, skies and waterways are an inseparable part of who we are. As we explore the intersection of technology and tradition, let us remember that our footsteps are guided by the echoes of those who walked before us, those who tended the fire of knowledge that warms us today. With humility and gratitude, let us acknowledge the custodianship of the traditional custodians and recognise that their ongoing stewardship is vital for our shared future. May we walk together in the spirit of unity and learning, honouring the spirit of this land and its peoples. So as mentioned before, my name is Bronwyn Cochrane, but please call me Bonnie. I am the founder and executive director of Tipiak, which is a 100% owned and run Aboriginal business. And for many years, I've been passionate about nurturing a deep understanding and appreciation for our First Nation knowledges and cultures and histories. At Tipiak, we are dedicated to fostering inclusive perspectives and authentic insights into the educational landscape. Our mission is to bridge the gap between the diverse knowledge systems and the contemporary education, particularly when it comes to First Nations wisdoms. So today's gathering is special as we delve into the mysteries of AI and blockchain. Guided by the expertise of our guest speaker, Justin Stankovic, Justin's insight are a meeting point of innovation and tradition, where the old ways dance with the pathways of the future. Our conversations will unveil the potential of these technologies to carry our Indigenous knowledge systems forward, connecting it with the ever-evolving tapestry of our times. As we embark on this journey, let us remember that our ancestors walk with us, guiding our steps as we explore the intersection of technology and tradition. Together, let's embrace this moment of connection, learning, and growth. So a warm welcome to you all as we gather to embark on this journey, and that connects the footprints of our ancestors with the pulse of today. Now let me introduce you to Justin Stankovic, a proud Palawa man and a dedicated teacher who walks with the spirit of our old ways while holding hands with the possibility of modern times. Justin's story resonates with the heartbeat of our land, blending our ancient teaching with the language of technology. From the days of his youth, Justin found kinship with computers. His journey, marked by challenges and triumphs, led him to become an Aboriginal Student Success Officer, a path that echoes the footfalls of our ancestors who guided our steps in education and community. As he strides to walk forward, Justin delves into the digital landscape of AI, blockchain, and open source technologies, each step echoing our old age commitment to safeguarding wisdom. His journey is a dance between the old and the new, a journey we're all a part of. So let us sit around this digital campfire and listen to Justin and share his knowledge, wisdom, and his stories. So thank you so much, Justin, for being in this space with us today around this digital campfire. And so would you, just to start off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you've done in this space of technology?
Yeah, Canaba, Bonnie, that was a beautiful introduction. If you haven't already started writing poetry, I think maybe you should take it up. That was really nice. Thank you. So, hello, Womaninji, everyone. As Bonnie said, I am a Palawa man. I was born and grew up here on Gunai Kurnai land. That's where I'm broadcasting to you still from today. And yeah, I currently work at Federation University. I'm a registered teacher, but there I support our Indigenous undergrads that are going through their bachelor degrees. Uh, anyway, moving on into technology, this is something that has been sort of a core part of my life. My dad worked at the same university that I work at now. He maintained the computers then, and as a child, I was around that environment and exposed to all these, early technologies, and just I've grown up with them. So I've always seen them as not just tools or as a source of entertainment, but they're bridges that span generations. Every time I listen to the song Mainstream by Yothu Yindi, I'm reminded by the song's powerful message of upholding traditions amidst the influx of modernity. It parallels technology, particularly AI and blockchain, and shows how we can ensure our tales, customs, and traditions of our ancestors are preserved immaculately for generations to come. So yeah, that's sort of the way that I see blockchain and AI, and how we're going to be able to combine our two worlds into that. Yeah.
Great. And so what role do you think AI and blockchain can play in relation to the preservation and revitalisation of First Nation knowledge systems?
So it's really nice to see that other places in the world are starting to do this. So there's a in Canada, the Wallamar Restoration Project. They're using geographic information systems to map, parts of Canada, and they're combining that with Indigenous knowledge systems and environmental practices in order to create work on environmental restoration. So using environmental practices that their people have had for millennia, passed through generations, in order to heal the land. There's lots of deforestation in Canada. They have a lot of oil up there that they extract. How do they revitalize those areas? And they're using Indigenous knowledge to do that. So I think that serves as a testament that technology doesn't need to override our heritage. Instead, it acts as a conduit that channels our ancient wisdom into actionable contemporary solutions.
Mm. And so what are some ethical considerations that need to be considered when using AI or blockchain for preserving First Nations knowledges? And how can we ensure that these technologies are applied to a culturally sensitive and responsible manner?
So that's where I think the beauty of blockchain comes in. So going back to what Yothu Yindi was saying, mainstream, it's not just a song. For many, and particularly for me, it's an anthem that signifies the melding of the old with the new. So the authenticity of tales and stories narrated by our elders under, vast skies and, around our campfire, that has an irreplaceable charm. And there's an undeniable need to safeguard that knowledge from the ravages of time. And I think blockchain is the most ethical way and the most fair way for us to do that. It's got the promises of being tamper proof, it's decentralized, so it's at less risk of being lost in, say, a hack or say a fire, a loss, or as we all do when people pass away, a lot of whatever wasn't written down or shared, that is lost. That with blockchain, that's how we can preserve that stuff. So imagine a scenario where dreaming stories, which are always rich with lessons and morals, are securely stored on a blockchain. These tales can then be accessed by anyone with a computer capable of accessing the internet, a smart device, it doesn't matter, at any time to ensure our connection to our roots remains strong. The digital stories can then be complemented with AI driven experiences. So I imagine like a virtual reality experience making these narratives more interactive and immersive. So imagine, putting on a VR headset and it paints you in a picture, puts a campfire there, and you're in the bush or you're on a mountainside or you've got the stars there, and you have someone there. They could be an elder, they could be a spirit, it could be anything. And that storyteller is an AI storyteller, and it's different to, if there's any people in here that play video games at the moment, it's a bit different to a conventional video game where there's a very linear, they say this, you say that, they say this, you say that. The AI can study this story and put its own nuance on it. And the reason why it's so deadly is like a little 10-year-old could be watching this story and at any point interrupt the storyteller to ask a clarifying question. And that AI is capable of hearing that child's question, come into, thinking up an answer and delivering it in real time. That's unique to that individual experience. So every time you can watch it again and again and again, and every time the story will be, roughly the same, but your experience of hearing that story can be unique each time. So I find storing our stories on blockchain so they're irrefutable and accessible and safe forever, and then using things like video games, virtual reality, and AI to actually present that data. Because it's one thing to have our stories, and that's great, but is there actually an interest in our youth and the wider community in actually consuming those stories? And I think that would be a really good way to actually do it. So yeah, that synergy of tradition and technology, not just about preservation, it's about evolution. And yeah.
And so just for us that aren't in technology, so, I'm in education, love technology and where it's heading. But the thing for me, I don't really understand blockchain. And so can you just give a little bit of a description of what blockchain is and how that can actually safeguard these wisdoms and knowledge systems for our communities? And then another, on top of that, can anyone access it and take that and then go and make money but not give it back to community?
So
there's a lot in that question.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. The first way I'll sort of try to just explain very quickly how a blockchain works. Imagine you're sitting in a circle with a bunch of people and you all have a piece of paper. And every time you pass something to someone else, say it is a money, say you pass $1 from me to you, then I write down that I passed $1 from me to you, you write that down, and everyone else writes it down. So everyone has a copy of the thing that happened. And so if I try to then say you then sent it back to me, and I say, hey, look, she sent it back, but everyone else can go, well, according to my record and your record and your record, that didn't happen. And so my proposal is rejected by the blockchain. So it's consensus based. People have to have a majority rules, and it doesn't necessarily have to be 51%. You could make it 66, you could make it 75, 80, you could make it 99, nearly unanimous for that change to happen. So that is a way to sort of protect and how blockchain might work. As in terms of people getting money and then not sharing it,
or just like can anybody in the world access that particular blockchain with all of that information? Or is it just specific to a certain group of people, if you like?
Yeah, so a blockchain sort of by definition is a open ledger that anyone can see and access, but not everyone can necessarily modify. In computer terms, it's called read permissions as opposed to write permissions. So you can certainly have a blockchain that other people can see, but is protected within a delegated group of individuals that actually are the only ones that can manipulate data on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's because it's open source software. You can make it really do anything you want and have your own version of it. Yeah.
Right. And so my next question is, how can blockchain and AI tools be made accessible and user-friendly for First Nations communities to actively add to these blockchains and participate in preserving their local knowledges and languages?
So, as we were saying before, like the campfire, that's always been our hallowed space where our stories are shared and wisdom's passed down. If we were to imagine the modern day equivalent of that would be blockchain, I think that's a great comparison. So think about the Yolngu people in Northern Territory. They've utilized blockchain by creating NFTs. Have you heard of the acronym NFT? So non-fungible tokens. What that allows them to do is they've put non-fungible tokens on their artworks that allows them to combat forgery and exploitation. So an artist can make an original piece, tag it with an NFT that's linked to their account that they control, that certifies anything that's been scanned by this particular code, this person, is linked to that individual artist. And it allows artists to trace their work's journeys, ensuring that they get rightful recognition and remuneration. So when they might sell an artwork the first time, they get paid. But if that artwork gets sold again and again and again, does that person get a commission each time it's sold or not? NFTs allow that sort of thing to be programmed into that piece of artwork, and it's just done automatically. It also allows potential buyers and appreciators to trace back the artwork's history, which allows them to connect more deeply with its origins and understanding of its true cultural significance. That's where I think it has value there. For at least that's just one example that I can sort of come up with at the moment.
Yeah, no, that's great, because it is like, and I'm an artist, but I don't like sell my work, but like a lot of my friends and community members who are artists have actually had their work stolen, and then they've created a whole heap of products using their artworks. And so this sort of safeguards that actual I guess thefts, if you like, of people's artworks, and then making money from that. And so that's really good to hear that that's actually being used.
Yep.
And is out there as well.
Yeah, there's an example. If you look up a thing called Ethereum, they're a platform. I believe they're based in the UK, but they allow you to bridge the physical and digital realms using blockchain. So they hold transaction rights over tangible and intangible items like cultural artifacts or even knowledge systems. So imagine a scenario, for example, with Yidaki's playing technique, which is at risk of being forgotten. Instead, it's recorded, preserved, and shared through such a platform, allowing future generations to learn, appreciate, and continue. And the magic of blockchain, much like songlines, isn't just in function, but it's in its spirit. That spirit of preservation, honoring the past, and so on. And there's a little caveat there. you might be thinking, is it really necessary to preserve the data of, say, a Yidaki on the blockchain when you could just, take a video of the person playing and put it on YouTube? Isn't that just as good? But YouTube, and by extension Google, are leaders in the world of data storage and access. So, you think that your data's reasonably good idea to put it up there. And for now, it is. But there's always the risk that YouTube at any moment and without warning could delete a video or an entire YouTube channel. There could be a major data loss or hack in, say, one of YouTube's data centers, or it burns down. Perhaps YouTube just ceases to exist in the coming decades. Where's our data then? It's gone. Blockchain negates this because every single person that is running that software is sharing the same record. If you lose your computer, it's destroyed, hacked, whatever, it doesn't matter, because you can just get a new one, rejoin the network, and automatically resync that blockchain, getting that data off somewhere else in the world. And if we're talking about preserving our data for the centuries and millennia to come, I think blockchain, at least with the technology that we have today, is the best way to do that.
So can you share any insights or experiences from your work in coding and AI that specifically relates to collaborating with First Nations communities and respecting their cultural protocols?
Yep. So AI. So okay, we're moving on from blockchain to
Yes.
AI.
Yes.
All right. So imagine AI, or artificial intelligence, which I also have a little caveat. Just a quick explainer. I think we've sort of lost the idea. It's been a bit muddied in the last, say, 12 months of what AI means or what it is. The acronym is artificial intelligence, but it's not intelligence in the same way that we humans might define ourselves as intelligent. AI is more a language model that, in this instance that I'm talking about, is able to sort of look at data, interpret it, and then deliver something to you in a way that makes sense. But it doesn't know what it's giving to you. It doesn't understand nuance, and these sorts of things that are critical to our culture, or just how humans communicate in general. But it is still a really good technology that is in its infancy. And so from there, I'll lead into where I'm going. So imagine AI as an eager student with an insatiable hunger to learn. Anyone here today that's seen the movie Chappie, or maybe a bit older, Short Circuit, Johnny Five, you'll understand what I mean. So the intricacies, nuances, and profound depths of Indigenous language and stories can be challenging for a non-native speaker to fully grasp. However, with AI, its vast computational capabilities can be trained to understand and process these languages, bridging cultural gaps. Its ability to learn makes it an excellent tool so you and I, we're educators. I see this as a great tool for education, because AI can mold itself to suit individual learning curves and preferences. This tailored experience that AI can provide would allow any student that, say, wants to learn the language of the country that they're in, it can give them sort of the basic course, but then there's a part where the student's not quite getting it. It can ask the AI to explain that in another way, and the AI can just do that in real time for them, and gives people much better access to learning a thing as complex as a language in a way that is extremely accessible. You could do it on a smart device or just a computer, rather than trying to find an elder who, it's very few and in between people that can speak these languages fluently, let alone book some time in to go hang out with them and learn it. And as well, that while auntie or uncle might be able to speak that language, they don't necessarily understand how to teach that language, whereas this AI can really tailor that experience for our students. So while it's critical to understand how powerful it is, we need to understand the boundaries. So my sacred totem is Wirral the lyrebird. you may know Wirral as the world's greatest mimic, replicating the sounds of everything he hears in the bush, such as other birds like a kookaburra, camera shutters, and rather sadly, chainsaws. Now, while Wirral can sound exactly like a chainsaw, he doesn't truly understand what they are. AI operates in that similar fashion. It can replicate human interactions, but it doesn't genuinely understand or feel them. So we're not going to be casting our teachers or elders to the wayside because we have these language models, at least not for now. And there is a silver lining to that. Despite AI's lack of sentience, its potential in the realm of education is immense. The First Voices project in Canada is a testament to how this technology can be harnessed to document and propagate Indigenous languages when combined with these adaptive learning capabilities. And yeah, I definitely think our Indigenous knowledge systems, you can store on blockchain, and then because they are really complex and the people that do understand them are disappearing, I think the way to preserve that is getting AI to interpret that data.
Yeah, because when we're talking, around First Nation languages, the thing that comes to my mind is the context. And so you really answered the question that I was going to ask when you were talking about how AI is used as a tool in regards to languages. It's not really, taking the role of our elders and community members in regards to, really truly teaching language and how in different communities it's contextual. So you might have one word that means something, but then it could also mean, like that same word could mean another thing in our communities. So it's like ensuring, so AI wouldn't be able to really contextualize the different meanings behind a certain word in language. It can just be used as like a tool to help, I guess, sustain our languages. And so yeah, so thanks for answering that question that I had. So what are the potential limitations or challenges associated with using blockchain or AI in the preservation of First Nations knowledge systems, and how can these challenges be overcome or minimized?
So yeah, like you just described, understanding the nuance. But again, AI is just like a student. As it is used, it will learn experiences. Say you were talking to it and it was trying to teach you about your language, and it told you something that you know isn't right. You can tell it that's not right. This is the context in which we would say or use that word. And the AI will learn that, and it will just get better over time. It's not a static thing. It continues to improve. So in terms of limitations, that's, I think, yeah, just remember it is still in its infancy, and it's only ever going to get better than it currently is. We're seeing it at its worst now, not its best. Like something to be really excited about. And in terms of maybe like the limitations of blockchain too, just costs of running computers, but they're only ever getting cheaper as well. Really,
and even in our communities, like a lot of our, especially our isolated communities, don't even have access to these technologies that we're talking about. So that's a whole nother conversation around, well, we need to be on that same playing field as First Nations people when it comes to ensuring that our communities have access to and understanding of these technologies so that it can be utilized the right way, if you like. Yeah. Okay, my next question. So can you discuss any collaborative projects or initiatives where AI and blockchain technologies have been used to empower First Nations communities and support their self-determination in preserving and sharing their knowledge?
Yeah, so the promise of blockchain is data sovereignty. For Indigenous communities who have experienced historical breaches of trust, blockchain offers a chance for data and knowledge to be kept secure, untouched, and most importantly, owned by a community. As I mentioned before, with the GitScan nations in Canada, they've used that geographic information system and other tools to map that land for environmental restoration, but they're also using that data for land rights documentation. That information was stored in traditional ways, in the minds of their elders, but it sets the stage for potential blockchain integration in their communities. In the song Treaty by Yothu Yindi, we hear the lyrics, promises can disappear just like writing in the sand. Well, blockchain makes these important documents permanent and irrefutable.
So how can educators and students integrate coding and AI and blockchain into their learning journeys to engage with and contribute to the preservation of First Nations knowledges? And are there any resources or tools that you would recommend? I know you've mentioned that Maritirium from the UK. What was that called?
Yeah, Maritirium. Yep.
Maritirium, yeah. So are there any... So how do you see educators and students integrating these technologies to, I guess, in their learning journeys to engage with and contribute to that preservation of knowledge systems?
So I imagine a future where, I know you just said our communities don't have access to computers, but let's fix that. Because I imagine a future where we have computer labs that they can go to that are dedicated to AI and blockchain in these communities, with a particular focus on cultural preservation. And in these labs, elders could be sharing stories or explaining traditions, which are then coded by our young ones into a digital format that's translated and then mapped by using AI. So for them to learn that, of course, nothing beats having a teacher that knows how to do it. But there's websites like code.org, Khan Academy. They both have courses on coding. For blockchain development, the Ethereum Foundation, they have a resource that can be valuable on how to code in I think it's called Solidarity. That's the language that the Ethereum blockchain uses. That's all open source software that anyone can download and start working on. You don't necessarily have to work on Ethereum. You could take Ethereum's code and then change it to suit the project you want to do in the Outback community. So you don't necessarily have to start from scratch either. You can get this cutting edge stuff and change it to suit your community. And that's encouraged and allowed. There's no cost to doing that sort of thing.
And so let's open up, because I think there were a couple of questions. I think that was my last question. Did you want to share, have you got anything else that you want to add to this conversation? Because I think I've asked the questions, but I did skip maybe a couple earlier around.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, let's continue and see if anyone has any questions. Just type it in the Q&A, and what I might do is, if you've got a question in regards to this, so Elizabeth said, I appreciate, actually, can I get Elizabeth, can I allow you to talk? Did you want to, or did you just want me to read that? I'm just going to pop you on there so we can have this conversation. So Elizabeth said, I appreciate what you are saying regarding protecting our values and context. I have been exploring the local content model. Is this the same model or a uniquely Australian model? Can you see those, Justin, the questions?
No, if I click this button, Q&A.
Is that what you were saying, Elizabeth?
I see it. The local content model, is this the same model or a uniquely Australian model? Sorry to say, I don't understand. I haven't heard of the local content model, local content model.
I've been context, like that context.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Oh,
Thank you.
jolly good. Sorry about that. I was like, hello, oi. So yeah, it's thank you. Thanks for unmuting me and letting me have this chance to say hi. So I'm with Barungi Gudgeon Watchabullet Nations, and we've been hearing. I mean, I've been kind of following the journey through with blockchain. It's really interesting. And so we were also exploring a system called local context TK labeling, which is it's coming out of the States. It's supporting Indigenous communities with tools, that can label and add intellectual property and just the different labeling systems that are around. Is what you were talking about here an enhancement on that type of model, or is it a uniquely Australian model that you've created? And are you aware of that local context?
So thank you for your question. Awesome. I haven't heard specifically of those words, the local content model, but my interpretation of that is imagine. So there's Brother Tyson Yunkaporta. He spoke about once the invaluable knowledge that Indigenous people have that is, very specific to their local area. So he talks about there's a particular flower that when it blooms, it's a sign that a species of fish is now at a particular stage in its life cycle. And now it's time to go fishing for that fish because at that point in time, its fat has medicinal properties. That's a complex series of signs that is unique to the individual nations around Australia that have that knowledge stored away. Being able to preserve that sort of complex knowledge on the blockchain ensures that they're credited for that sort of discovery or just ancient knowledge, and AI can document and process that sort of information in a way that is sort of more accessible to others. Like imagine, children running around in their communities documenting pictures of different plants and fungi that they find, feeding that back into that algorithm, and maybe that algorithm was told a story by an elder about a particular mushroom, and then the child uploads a photo of that mushroom to the AI, and then the AI can go, oh, that's what that looks like. That's linked to that story I was told, a decade ago. And that's where I think that these local models can take hold. Yeah.
That's a beautiful way of saying it. And it adds so many more layers of complexity to what I've been told about labeling and blockchain and all those types of things. It still does sound very like a lot of synergies or a lot of parallels to the local context. But I like the fact that it's coming out of Australia, because with this local context, I believe from what I can understand, it's a pool of all Indigenous communities across the world. Okay. The other question I had and have, and I get pretty excited sometimes. It's like, okay, you've said that, great, I want it in my pocket tomorrow. We're in the process currently of biodiversity and DNA mapping across some of our significant sites and some of our endangered and debilitated landscapes. And we're really in a space to hear more about these technologies and how we can access them tomorrow and or even I'd love to hear more about it moving forward, I think.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And that's me. I'm done now.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
And there was another question from Vincent. So I'm just gonna disable talking for Elizabeth and Vincent. Can I just I'm going to allow you to talk. Is that okay? So you can join this conversation. Hello, hello.
Hello, is that working?
It sure is.
Perfect. So yeah, just had a question. It was more so for stuff like open AI models like ChatGPT. So say students are putting in say we're doing a task and then I might be asking them to look at specific foods eaten in a region or like a Dreamtime story, and say they're putting it through ChatGPT, even though they're not meant to. How reliable would the content on there be? Considering it's not something that's kind of been like not too sure how it works, but like obviously getting it from an elder would be the best, but not having access to an elder or someone with that sort of knowledge, and with the limited knowledge available on the internet, how would you kind of address that? I'm not sure who would be best suited to answer that. If that's more of a Bonnie question or a Justin question. Yeah.
Yeah, so like even like with ChatGPT, you can ask the question, but I don't believe that, the knowledge that we as First Nations people are coming with is really, really deep, and there's many, many layers to a specific cultural topic area, if you like, or, the history that have been, and those stories that have interwoven with who we are as First Nations people, that have been passed on for this knowledge is rich and deep, that has been passed down from generation to generation for 65,000 years. And so a lot of and because there's not a lot of, I guess, we're 3% of Australia's population, like there's we're getting to the stage where there are Aboriginal coders and Aboriginal scientists that are working in this space, but I definitely don't think that the richness of how I would answer something is on ChatGPT. So it's really giving a limited answer, if you like.
Yeah. No, because my thing was like, I picked it up and it was like they were doing a story and I could tell it was like ChatGPT, just the language they use and how they described the story of, I think it was how the birds got their color, and it was like, break down the story, and the language they used was so like void of emotion to actually explain it. It's like, well, obviously like you haven't actually done that, but it was like the information of the story was yes, but then it was like, breaking down the principles of the story just wasn't quite there. So it was like how so I was just, that was more like, because there is stuff available on the internet, but it's like just the validity of that. So
and I think like even with that, Vincent, is like, when we're giving these tasks to our kids, we've got to ensure that, we're giving them context in regards to, I want to know what your perspective is on the values that are interwoven in these dreaming stories, and how does it relate to to Aboriginal ways of being, doing and knowing, so that it's sort of, I guess, giving them the extra bit of information that it's not just, the story that, we're focusing on. I don't just want to know about, how the birds got their colours, but I want to know that deeper contextual meaning of that particular story, and then your input for that. Like, how do these values that are being passed down in these stories, how do they relate to your students' life? Like, give an example of, something that you've done that has that same sort of value, so that you're contextualizing it, not just in the context of, the story, but then they're like having that relationship with that story, because then they can contextualize it in their own life.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So
So
no,
what
like,
sorry.
no, I was gonna say, yeah. So it's just that added emotion and unpacking, but it was like for a kid that, you know, may have been away and they're doing it at home and they've kind of missed that. It would be, or like say even for food technology, it's like, oh, you know, you've got a mob living in the coastal regions. What were some of their hunting methods? What were some of their, you know, their food diet race? And it was like, if they just pop that into ChatGPT, how valid is that? That was, yeah.
And
Vincent, ChatGPT's model is up till September 2001. It doesn't have any information after that.
Yeah.
In terms of your students using ChatGPT, remember, I compare ChatGPT to Whirl the Lyrebird. The Lyrebird is saying things that it's heard, but it doesn't understand. ChatGPT is doing the same thing to you. So when you're, and you have to just, the thing, so what grade are your students?
Anywhere from like year 7 to year 10.
Yeah, okay, so that's a great time to start teaching them about being critical thinkers.
Yeah.
You know, a decade ago, teachers were teaching students to not believe everything they see on the internet. Well, now you need to start teaching them, the same sort of thing. Just because it sounds correct doesn't mean it is. Whirl sounds like a kookaburra, but he's not a kookaburra.
Yeah.
And in terms of getting information about Indigenous communities from ChatGPT, remember that model's been trained on specific data that it was fed from an American company. In the future, we might have AI language models that are created by, so for example, maybe there's a Gunai Kurnai one where it's Gunai Kurnai elders and they've trained a Gunai Kurnai AI, and you go to chat Gunai Kurnai, not ChatGPT. So we'll have different AIs that students and people can interact with to get better answers. And in terms of recognizing when your students just got something and they've copied and pasted, that's just your job as a teacher, to sort of see that. But
the kids
good
love
question.
And it was just like they're using it, they're reading the information on there, but it's like the information on there, it's like the same as Wikipedia. It's like some stuff is right, but a lot of it's all crap. Is it the same kind of principle for them? Like if they're reading it, it's like, oh well, you got to take it with a grain of salt.
And it's also because it is a language model like AI, and it's taken the information, what did you say, Justin, up until
September 2021.
So 2021. So like when you think about all of the information that's out there on the internet, and whose perspective is that written in as well? So you've also got to, that's a whole nother layer as well. So, it could be, because there's so many different perspectives on, it might not even be an Aboriginal person where this information is coming from. So it's like, yes, that information is there, but it's very, that at that very basic level of the knowledge system that exists for us. And so then, teaching them about, and you do, like, we do as educators, that's what we do. We teach, first-hand, second-hand, and so on, like information. And so it's the same sort of, thinking when it comes to ensuring that ChatGPT is like, whose perspective is that written in? Because, you're just gathering up all of these little bits and pieces that are out on the internet, but, and then putting all those perspectives together. Is that how it works, Justin?
Yeah, so I just keep going back to Whirl and say...
Yes.
if your students are writing about a kookaburra, are they going to get the information from the kookaburra or the lyrebird? ChatGPT is the lyrebird, and it's pretending to be a kookaburra. So maybe teach your students about how to find sources properly and do proper referencing, because when they're presenting you an essay that's just got nothing, break it down, and because they might not necessarily be cheating, but you gain better understanding of their learning if you actually do a bit of a formative assessment on that and just ask them questions about what they have presented you.
Yeah. No, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for asking that question. This is, as an educator, is really good conversations. Another question. So, who's the next? So, Tess, can I just unmute you? So, where are we? Vincent. Oh, so we're talking, and then we're going to Tess. Do you mind me?
Hi.
Oh, good.
Okay. Hi there.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you. Really interesting discussion. I've been wondering, because I've seen some examples of the content that's collated, and like you say, it's about trying to check the credibility of the information and the truth. But also, I'm just wondering, because you don't seem to get the sources that the information is drawn from, so it's harder to cross-check yourself, or if information is taken from various quality references, or whether it is a story from an elder that's been documented. Yeah, I'm just wondering, how do you actually discern the difference?
So if you've asked a language model like ChatGPT to tell you a dreaming story, it will give you one. Ask it a follow-up question, where's this from? And it will tell you. It might just say that it made it up. It might give you a reference. If it gives you a reference, you then ask it, is this a real reference? And it will say yes or no. So asking, just like we would ask a student, where did you learn this? Do the same thing with ChatGPT. Ask it where that data is coming from, and that's how you essentially can be sure. You can ask it to reference the data to, ask it a question and then give it a follow. Present your sources in, APA format at the end. All of that's possible. AI is best when you're really specific in asking it what you want. If you're vague with your question, it will give you a vague answer too.
Right, really great advice. I'll experiment with that. It does have a lot of potential, but it is early days and teething problems. So I'm so pleased to hear, your focus on how it can be adapted to preserving Indigenous knowledges as well, and really, I guess, training up communities with skills and the kids to be involved in that.
Yeah, make sure learn how to use it, because the future is going to be people that are employed are the ones that know how to use these tools, as opposed to the people that don't. So get familiar with it and teach your students how to do it too.
Hopefully you can inspire and mentor many young people.
Hopefully.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much.
And also, Tess, I was thinking, like, when you were asking that question around, acknowledging where it's coming from, like if you're in that educational space, it would be a wonderful opportunity in our classrooms to actually have this type of conversations with our students in relation to where this knowledge is actually coming from. And, just hearing their perspective in this as, the next generation, there'd be some wonderful, you'd provide some wonderful opportunities for great discussions around those particular questions.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And then, like, you can even go deeper and ask, if you're talking about the knowledge that's been given when you've asked a question. I think even having a conversation with the students around how does it affect First Nations communities? Like, yes, we've got this, these technologies, which is wonderful, but it's also, how does it affect our communities and the knowledge systems there? And then how can we ensure later on, like when it does become, it's the, you know, the advancements in technology is going to, you know, skyrocket over the coming years, and having those conversations in our classrooms with our students is, you know, how do we ensure that our communities have access to this and, you know, the deep, rich knowledge systems that do exist. Just having those types of conversations and getting the students' perspectives on that would be really rich discussions, I believe.
Yeah, to think more deeply as to where the information comes from and whose perspective it is, but also the opportunities to acknowledge and credit intellectual and cultural property.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for your question.
Welcome, much work to do.
So there was an anonymous one. Can you read that? So how would you balance Indigenous IP ownership and blockchain being relatively open and democratic? That's a great question.
Ooh.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, so I think it would come in stages. First, begin, probably the most obvious one, begin with community engagement, engaging meaningful conversations with the communities that are involved, seek their informed consent. It's really important to make sure that our communities, particularly our elders, understand what it is that they're agreeing to. Contacting their local Indigenous legal service, that then probably the next step in defining how we're going to be protecting these rights, you know, in terms of the law. Establishing, you know, cultural protocols and agreements that outline how that knowledge can be used and who can use it. And so now moving on to blockchain, so I'm of the camp that it has to be open source. That's the entire point. Everyone has to be able to see it, otherwise it falls apart. If you can't see it, people can be malicious and do things and you don't know about it. So understanding that it's a decentralized, immutable ledger that records and verifies everything, just having that understanding is important. How would I balance it being open and democratic? Again, if you take, say, the code of Ethereum, and you can then change it to be whatever you want. You might say that the information is open and everyone can see it, but in terms of what actually gets put on that blockchain is only controlled by a certain amount of people that might have to have consensus. Say you've got a group of 10 elders, they have the keys to this vault. They can be presented with information from the community, and the elders can vote on whether or not they want to include that, or they can reject it. And that's the point with open source software. You propose a change, people consider it, and then they either knock it back or they accept it. And typically when they knock it back, they'll say why. So there's always the process of coming back and giving that information again in a way that you've been given feedback, in the way that you need to change it. Yeah. And yeah, in terms of dispute resolution, I think going back to the beginning and just making sure, hey, if it's a 51% consensus, then that's what we agree on, and that you can't be sitting there getting upset or angry that something has been done, because we agreed from the beginning that this is how it was going to work. And again, the beauty of blockchain, if a percentage of people using that particular chain are so upset with the way it's going, it's called forking. So they can take a copy of that chain, split off, and then from there have their version, and while the other version remains, and then they both run in parallel. That's how I would sort of engage with that.
But my question, like on top of that, Justin, is, you know, when you've got that Indigenous IP and then you've got blockchain that's, you know, open to everyone in the world, is it? I don't really... Yeah. So like if you've got this system where anybody in the world can access it, how does it protect that IP in particular? And I guess it's a conversation where you mentioned around like legalities of it, but with because it's open, how do you, I guess, safeguard, and I just keep coming back to this, like how do you safeguard that information and that IP with, you know, somebody over in Europe taking that information and I don't know. So, maybe I'm just thinking too.
So someone in Europe finds our Indigenous blockchain and finds a dreaming story that they really fancy. They just take it and turn it into a children's storybook and sell it as their own idea. Well, that's open, you know, that's still within the realm of our world. If they're doing something like that, the organization that I mentioned before, Ethereum, they're built around that sort of thing. We would see there's a time block when that information was uploaded to the blockchain, and say it was uploaded yesterday or a decade ago. And since that time, someone's gone and found it. You're clearly able to link it back to when it was established. And then through legal organizations like Ethereum, or, you know, maybe just the wider Australian government and the governments of Europe, that's how that sort of matter can be taken care of.
And even you know, accessing like in First Nation lawyers like Terry Jenke, how she talks about, you know, Indigenous IP and has, you know, written many I guess legal documents that, you know, provide a pathway for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in regards to that. And then it's like, you know, it's in that legal perspective and, you know, written into law. And I think that it's, as educators, it's really important that, I guess, we also provide opportunities in our classrooms to showcase, you know, people like our mob that are doing such wonderful things in our communities in relation to, you know, whether they're a lawyer and they're, you know, like Terry Jenke, and there's many, and like she's not the only one, like there's many, you know, Aboriginal lawyers out there, doctors, scientists, people in IT, like it's wonderful to see. But what we need to do as educators is showcase these people in our classroom so that, you know, our kids are seeing that, yes, like, you know, if they can do it, I can do it as well. Like, I just think it's so important that we're doing that as educators. Yeah. So I just think we're, you know, there's so many deadly First Nations people out there.
That thing of, if I can do it, you can do it. That's the entire message behind. So I have a YouTube channel called World Dreaming, where I take Aboriginal and Australian children's storybooks out into the bush and I read them with my little cartoon live bird world. And I do that all by myself. And I edit it on my computer with free open source software, because I hope that if there's a student out there watching and going, I want to make videos, but I can't do it, I want to show them, well, no, you can. I did this all on my own with just a, you know, just a phone camera and my computer. Like, these are things that are accessible to you. And I think that's where kids can learn with, like, our AI. These are free tools that they can download and learn how to use. And, you know, there's even AI out there that will teach the child how to code. So
gotta love technology. But just, it's that bridging it to our knowledge systems because of the depth and richness, you know, that is associated with these knowledge systems. So we've gone over time. I just want to really thank you for this really rich, deep conversation today. I've learned a lot, so thank you very much. And I hope, and I just wanted to thank everybody that joined us today as well, and hope you've gained some insights as well. And I, just want to thank you so much, Dustin. And
Kenneth Bar Bonnie, this was really fun, and awesome. Thanks for your engagement, guys. I enjoyed us answering your questions, and feel free to email me. I think Bonnie will put my email address that you can contact me at the university too if you want me to help follow up, or you've got a project, yeah, Vincent, if you still want some help with your students, happy to give you some advice there on different ways that you can assess. And yeah.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Justin.
Yeah. Thanks.
Maruba. Yellow, thanks everyone. Have a good arvo.